Hello everyone, this is Helios Raven. I tell you how I do it, even if you don't care. And we're continuing with our in-depth look into the forces of Battlefleet Gothic, and we're going to continue on with the forces of Chaos. Now, we're going to first look at the Blackstone Fortress. The reason for this is because we just finished the Imperial Navy, and the Imperial Navy can use this model as well, so this is a nice transition between the Imperial Navy and Chaos. Now, for those who don't know, the Blackstone Fortress is an ancient piece of technology once controlled by the Eldar, and was the only possible way of killing the C'tan. And during the First War of the C'tan, the Eldar lost control of the Blackstone Fortresses, and they were scattered across the stars, where the Imperial Guard and the forces of Chaos started picking them up. And eventually, Abandon found a way to activate them, finding ancient Eldar technology that controlled the Blackstone Fortresses, and started wreaking havoc upon the universe with them. And now, how the Imperial Guard's able to use this, I would think to assume that possibly the Eldar, after Eldrad took over one of the Blackstone Fortresses and became one with the ship, I would assume that possibly the Eldar basically just made a pact with the Imperial Guard to teach them how to use the Blackstone Fortresses, or some weird stuff like that. I really have no clue why the Imperial Guard can use them, since in the fluff it says they didn't know how to activate them, but that's neither here nor there. If you want to go check it out, I'm sure there's a bunch of information sites out there. The only thing I could find was Wiki, and Wikipedia was not that informative, and actually a little bit confusing since it contradicted itself in two stories, but we're not here to discuss fluff like that. We're here to discuss models in game. So, let's take a look at the Blackstone Fortress's stats. We first got that it's a defensive type, it's basically a space station, and it's got 16 hit points. Now, this ship right here has the most hit points out of almost any model in the entire game. So this thing has a lot of hit points, so it can take a really good beating. And it also has a speed of 10, so it's fairly slow with special turns, 6 shields, 6 armor, and 0 turrets. So this thing's really hard to hit, and when it is hit, it takes a lot of punishment before it goes down. The only real way to take this thing down is if you have a lot of ordnance fired at the thing. And even then, it's still pretty hard, because chances are, because of these weaknesses, you're going to have some kind of ship defending this thing, which is probably the best thing to do for the Blackstone Fortress, since against ordnance it can't really defend itself, and you don't want to waste its shots on blowing up ordnance with it. And so, what we go into that, basically, this is basically like like a Death Star. I would keep it in the back line and just from long range just fire away at this thing, because long range, short range doesn't affect the thing, and in short range that's where this thing's probably gonna start feeling a little bit tired and weak after it gets pelted a couple of times. But the best thing is there's no way of getting behind this ship, and I'll tell you why now when we look at its armaments. Its armaments is the warp cannon, basically a special cannon that rips a hole in the fabric of space and time and focuses a concentrated beam of energy from the warp and fires it. So basically it rips a hole in the space-time and pulls out warp energy and concentrates it into a beam, which can fire at 90 centimeters. So this thing has also one of the longest ranges in the game. It's got a firepower of 8 and all-around fire arc. So there's no way of getting around this, hiding from its gunshots. It will find... If you're within 90 centimeters, the thing is going to blow the ship out of the water. There's no doubt about it. And it's got a couple of special rules, one of them being that it cannot take special orders, so it can't benefit from lock on target or all ahead full or anything like that, or brace for impact, so you kind of lose that downside to that. But it automatically passes all other leadership checks, so asteroid fields, warp storms, anything that requires it to take a leadership check to not suffer any type of negative penalties, it automatically passes, which is pretty sweet, especially if you decide to put a lot of hazards in your game, in your battlefield. And the thing will move 10 centimeters in any direction in the movement phase. It does not turn like normal ships, so this thing will go wherever it wants. So, yes, it is weak. It can't really defend itself against torpedoes and such, but it can dodge torpedoes pretty well, because I highly doubt if you keep this thing far away from enough that torpedoes are going to get to it in time, unless they're really close when they're fired. But again, like I said, that's neither here nor there. A lot of people don't like that about the Blackstone Fortress. I think it's just a minor inconvenience that you really shouldn't use it to not consider having this in your forces. It doesn't have a crew. This thing is like a living machine, into the point where it's the closest thing a machine can be to alive without being sentient, because it's always been described by Imperial crews when they entered an activated Blackstone Fortress that it was like, pulsating, and like raw energy was moving through it as if it was breathing it, type of thing. So it has no crew, which means it gets no D6 roll for boarding actions. So again, another reason you don't want this thing in close quarters combat. And now for the thing that it really excels at is the warp cannons. You roll 1 die for each firepower strength. So this is 8 dice. And it requires a 4 to hit like a lance. So that's 8 dice that only need 4s to hit to destroy a ship. And when I mean that, I mean this thing ignores all shields, including Eldar holofields and devices like similar to it. So Necron's special energy shields, Tyranids, spore mines, all these things do not affect the Blackstone Fortress's capabilities of hitting the ship behind the defense. The only real way you can really defend against this thing is against the brace for impact roll. But other than that, any type of special shield thing does not affect this thing. It hurts the ship directly no matter what. So you fire all 8 shots at one lone cruiser, you can blow up a cruiser of shooting phase if you're really lucky with the dice rolls. Now, like I said, this thing does have a really destructive, powerful gun that is capable of destroying a Satan. And now this is what the designers said about the about this particular weapon. Now, this is exactly how they said it, word for word. I'm not paraphrasing. At the moment, we're leaving the Blackstone Fortress's super mega death shot out of these rules, but maybe we'll introduce them along with rules for combining Blackstone Fortresses together in an issue of White Dwarf magazine. And it then says if you have any suggestions on how you can work this, they're open to suggestions. What they mean by combining is in fluff, it is said that Abandon started combining Blackstone Fortresses together to create weapons capable of destroying planets, with 2 Blackstone Fortresses ripping apart everything. And I don't believe they made official rules for it. I think they did make official rules for combined shots, when they made the Imperial Guard able to use the Blackstone Fortresses, but I did find, looking on the internet, these house rules called Blackstone Fortress Weapons. House Rules for Your Blackstone Fortress by Peter Spence. I'll put a link in the description for where you can read these. And it does have rules for the Super Mega Death Shot, which says it fires only 1 shot, which is treated the same as an Armageddon gunshot. 90 centimeter range, all ships that the hull covers suffer D6 hits, partial suffer 1 hit. What does that mean? I honestly have no clue. I've looked online, I can't find any information on an Armageddon gunshot. If anybody out there knows, please let me know. I'd like to see what this is about. I can understand that it's some sort of template, but I know it can't be the blast template for the Nova Cannon, because the hole in that is too small to cover ships. So it's got to be something else that I haven't seen yet, or if they're talking about the little peg itself. But even again, it's really hard to get more than 1 ship under the hole in the Nova Cannon blast template. And then they did make rules for Blackstone Fortresses combining to make combining the shots instead of using the Super Mega Death Shot. It's when you have 2 Blackstone Fortresses within 15 centimeters apart, you roll a d6, and on a 2, the shot is successful. On a roll, the Blackstone Fortresses suffer 1d6 hit points of damage, and the shot does not go off. And then there's rules on how you draw lines of sight to it and do damage calibration from that. Since these are really house rules, I'm not going to go that much deeper into them. Like I said, I'll leave a link in the description so you can take a look at them yourself. All in all, I like this model. I think it's a really nice space station out of all the space station models available, and I think it's worth picking up. I'm definitely going to pick one up for my army when I get a chance. So I think out of all the space stations, this one's worth its points in the long run. And that's all the time we have for today, so Until next time, this is Helios Raven, signing off.